Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. New Zealand First supports the Lobbying Disclosure Bill as presented to Select Committee. In December last year, Transparency International published the Global Corruption Perceptions Index, which placed New Zealand first in the index of the world's least corrupt nation, and that was something for us to be proud of, something to be valued. The perception of corruption amongst members of Parliament is very low in New Zealand, despite a recent high-profile case. But that low level can be enhanced further by more openness around lobbying of MPs in this country. Openness and transparency are essential in all areas of government, save only where genuine issues of public interest require an exception. In the United Kingdom recently, as we all know, the corrupt practices concerning Member of Parliament expenses there became an issue which degraded the reputation of the UK Parliament. Transparency is the medicine to avoid all such problems. And it's something that you can't shake. Once a Parliament gets a reputation for being anything other than free from corruption, it's very hard to shake that perception. So for those sorts of reasons, I think this bill, although it is very much required in this country, the bill is not aimed at correcting a current problem. It is aimed at avoiding such problems happening in the future. In relation to paid lobbying and activities, it's very necessary. It is appropriate and desirable, and it's harmless and worthwhile. Now, there is nothing inherently wrong, of course, about lobbying. It's a healthy part of our democracy, provided it is done openly and provided it is done ethically, especially where it concerns professional, in other words, paid lobbyists. Currently, it's something of a secret activity, and it shouldn't be. Professional paid activities require professional standards and openness. The public ought to have the means to know the who, the what and the how about lobbying in this country, as is the case in Australia and Canada and no doubt other places as well. Therefore, the requirements of the bill for registration of professional lobbyists, those who are paid, returns of lobbying activities and a code of conduct arrived at through a consultative process and with select committee scrutiny are appropriate and should be welcomed by lobbyists as well as MPs and the public generally. The administration of the Act, as it will be, by the Auditor-General, in respect of the register, the keeping of returns and making them publicly available, and the development of the Code of Conduct, of course, are also very appropriate provisions in the bill. There will be a cost, of course, but it would be modest compared to the value of preserving New Zealand's reputation externally and of Parliament's reputation internally. Concerning sanctions, the removal or suspension of a lobbyist from the register for a breach of the code or for failing to file returns is a very powerful tool and will be successful. That, of course, is subject to a lobbyist being given the opportunity to present their views in those circumstances. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First's only reservation really is around the definition of the term lobbyist, and I expect that the Select Committee will pay close attention to that particular issue. That being solved, this is a bill which should proceed. New Zealand First would like to consider also in the future whether this principle should also be applied to local government, because if it's appropriate for central government, then of course it's also appropriate for local government. But that's an issue for the future, one, however, which I do think needs to be considered. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First is satisfied that this bill is well conceived and that it deserves full consideration by the Select Committee, with particular reference, as I've said, to the definition of who is a lobbyist for the purpose of the bill. With that reservation and those comments, New Zealand First is very happy indeed to support the bill to go to the Select Committee.
I call the honourable member Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.